Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation. Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 15th day of January. Listen, folks, 30 minutes past the hour, I'll have Keith Engel on from TGI Sports. Keith, a lot of knowledge about the New England Patriots. Going to ask him his thoughts on Mike Vrabel. Get his thoughts on some of these coaching candidates. What's he think about Buffalo, Baltimore game? Talk about that. Get his thoughts on the national championship. Keith, very knowledgeable of the college football game. Had a prediction earlier this year that Notre Dame had a good path to the national championship game, and he was right. So stand by. We'll take our first and only break. I'll be back here momentarily. Hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
All righty, then I'm back here live. Also, going to talk about the ranking of the jobs. What's the best job that was available in this hiring cycle? What's the worst job available in this NFL hiring cycle? Going to talk about that. But first, Monday, the national championship will be played in the college football ranks here. Marcus Freeman, 39 years old, will be coaching Notre Dame against Ohio State, 8.5-point underdogs. Great win, by the way. Great win. What was it? Thursday. Great win Thursday. Notre Dame, absolutely. Did not see that coming. Excuse me, folks. Like everybody, I've got a head cold here. So there's been a lot of talk about Marcus Freeman here interviewing for the NFL job. By the way, if he wins a national championship, I did stand corrected. I forgot they got to the championship game back in 2012. That was Brian Kelly got humiliated by Alabama. I remember the guy calling the game and saying if it would have been a fight, they would have caught it by now. Alabama was on top of them like 21-0 before the end of the second quarter. It was just a total rout there, maybe even before that. I don't think this is going to be like that. Could be. Big difference in talents. Like I said, it's about a 9-point spread, depending on what book you look at. But going back looking at this, if they win, and Lou Holtz, by the way, who coached in I thought he won in 91, but the last time they won a national championship was 1988. Since Lou Holtz left, a lot more money started coming into college football, preferably here in the South area. And the adage was between the SEC dominance and the academic power and the fact that it's so far up there north that they would not return back to prominence. Now with NIL coming into play, they've really done something. 3 years in, very impressive, Marcus Freeman. I say all that because the Bears are wanting to interview him. Still, I said yesterday, still stand by it. I think Mike McCarthy would be the best for that job. That being said, Marcus Freeman has done one thing that reminds me of another very young coach hired in the NFL, and that was Sean McVay, who did a fantastic job Monday, coaching up the Rams. They've got a Super Bowl here. He is not insecure enough to surround himself with much older coaches who are just more experienced than him in certain aspects of the game. I've complimented him on bringing in Al Golden there to surefire that defense, and man, that is sharp as a tack. Kind of reminds me of Sean McVay bringing in Wade Phillips, much older, much experienced defensive coordinator when he first got the job with the Rams. It shows me that there's a level of maturity, security there with the Marcus Freeman. Now, that being said, yeah, if he wins the national championship, maybe he'll get some more interviews, request, air quotes, other than the Chicago Bear gig. I do not like that offense that Notre Dame runs. Riley Leonard's a decent college quarterback. You hear guys like Colin Cowherd and whatnot go on and on about Riley Leonard. Not bad at Notre Dame. Not bad at, was it Duke? Kind of reminds me of a Daniel Jones a little bit, if you ask me. Maybe a little bit more of a glorified Daniel Jones. So essentially, if I'm one of these general managers and I'm talking to Marcus Freeman, he's going to have to sell me on an NFL-style offense. Now, an NFL-style offense is not a pro style, in air quotes. Everybody, the pros don't have to run a pro-style offense because that's not what we do today. But he's going to have some kind of different element to sell me if I'm a general manager, owner of an NFL team, other than what they run at Notre Dame. Defense, check. Leader amongst men, leader amongst coaching staff, check. That's great for Marcus Freeman to just be turning 39 years old. I think he just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Coach. I want to say January 10th, so he's not even 40 years old yet. That being said, we've got a lot of coaches now not even 40 years old. Look at Kevin O'Connell. Had a bad last couple of weeks, but they did win 14 games. Very good coach there. Now, if he can sell me something on an offensive philosophy that they think can win, yeah, I would give him a shot here. Just for those particular reasons, I think he should stay there. If the win or lose, no matter what happens, they know they're playing on house money, 9-point favorites. But the idea of beating Penn State and Georgia, even if Georgia's got a backup quarterback, is still very impressive, if you ask me, regardless of them losing to Northern Illinois second week of the season. So it's going to be an interesting thing. I do not think he's going to get hired in the NFL. But it's something to talk about because of his success coming in 3 years like this. And it will be more of a topic come next week if they win a national championship. I'll put it this way. He's not a guy that I would totally just shut out in the NFL. I would have to have him sell me on some type of offensive philosophy if he can get a good OC like a Joe Brady, somebody that comes out of nowhere. That's the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Something like that. Joe Brady was an offensive coordinator at LSU under Joe Burrow. Really good schemes, clever. something like that of that nature. Now, this guy seems like a very good networker. He's sharp and on top of things. We'll see how that works out. There's so many coaches that could not get there at Notre Dame. And quite frankly, it does feel like a better team than the Brian Kelly team. So, but I keep forgetting that Brian Kelly did get to the national championship in 2012, and that was simply a different era then. This was pre-NIL and pre-transfer portal where Alabama's could just stack and stack and stack and stack players. So maybe if Kelly was still at Notre Dame, it still may be the same case. That being said, Kelly, he needs to get it together at LSU, and fans are losing patience like nobody's business. Okay. That was a mouthful. Got a little bit of a cold. By the way, the Mad New Yorker will be on tomorrow, folks. I won't have a live show Friday. Probably redo one. Probably re-air one of my greatest hits shows. Maybe put a couple. You know what I may do on Friday is divvy up a couple of my interviews and put a couple of my interviews together. I may put Mike Richmond interview in there with a Jenny Paul replay interview. She was really good. I may do that for Friday, but tomorrow pick the games with the Mad New Yorker. I think the injury reports are pretty much not going to change too much. I'm a little concerned about Marlon Humphrey, but I think he's going to be okay. He came back in the game Sunday, and I haven't heard anything about it. But tomorrow's Thursday. This week has flown by. I'll have the Mad New Yorker in. And we will pick the national championship game. We'll pick this week's NFL games. And I tell you what, it's not an easy task. The Rams could beat the Eagles. No, I tell you what, it's a coin flip. Baltimore, Buffalo. Early Buffalo was the favorite. Now Baltimore's the favorite, according to Vegas. Some of the national people are already leaning Buffalo. I'm leaning Baltimore. I could be swayed one way or another by an injury report, but that's going to be a well of a game. That's the game of the year up until this point. Buffalo, Baltimore. Buffalo's much more healthier now back when they played and got humiliated by Baltimore. It's not going to be 35-10. Could be 35-10 if they go in there and turn the ball over a bunch, but I doubt it'll be 35-10 one way or the other. Pending injuries on both sides. So tune in tomorrow. We'll be having a good show here. Carlos told me he will be able to play. He'll be available to come on the program. Going to have a good show. He's dealing with a little congestion like we all are, right? It's that time of year, folks, not unless you're living down in Florida and whatnot. So anyways, all right. This hiring cycle, ranking all the jobs from worst to first. How about that? I'm going to go ahead and do them worst to first. And I tell you what, you may be surprised by some of my ranking here. You may be surprised by this ranking, but I'll start off with the worst available head coaching job in the NFL during this cycle. Okay. New Orleans. There's 7 jobs. One's been filled. New Orleans. I think that Saints job, listen, folks, we're talking 4 years now. We're talking last year of Breeze, maybe 5. Up until now, they've been over the cap every year, this Saints team. And I can't really find out that many players. They were 80 and 90, $100 million over the cap. Now this year, they're down to $52 million over the cap. Now, this Gail Benson, now I do like a hands-off owner, but at some point, somebody's got to tell Mickey Loomis, stop putting off the inedible and blow this team up, all right? And maybe they just get to a point where they've got so many guys on rookie contracts. They're doing it slowly but surely, getting their cap number back because they're not really paying any quarterbacks. It's a pretty modest contract there for Derek Carr, but they're $52 million over. Other than, I'd keep Chris Olave and they've got 2 tackles that are legit according to Pro Football Focus. That's the only positive they've really got going for them. They got the left tackle and the right tackle. They're set there. Loomis has did a good job there. But, I mean, you got a lot of older players on that defense. You got a lot of older players, including Derek Carr, who missed this year on that offense. And I like Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara is past his prime here. He's starting to get injured a lot. You got to move off a lot of these guys. And Cam Jordan, I mean, I love Cam Jordan, but the guy's 35, 36 years old. Owner's a little too I'd have moved off Mickey Loomis because he should have blown this team up 2 or 3 years ago, and he's not. And they don't have a top pick. They're stuck in no man's land, and they don't have any. I don't see any real answer in sight other than a complete rebuild. It's a decent job, but it's the worst of this cycle, in my humble opinion. Like I said, 1 receiver and 2 tackles. I mean, I may have to look in it and maybe a defensive player here and there, but for the most part, you got to blow this team up. You know, you got to blow this team up, and you're 2 good hard years of getting that cap cleared out and doing the inedible, and like I said, because Mickey Loomis hadn't pushed for this, I'd move off him. He's been way over 10 years. He was good during his time with Sean Payton, but the fact that he don't want to do this tells me that he's a little complacent. So that's the worst job available, in my opinion. That's number 7. Number 6, as we move up the coaching ranks, and I wrote this on 3 different pages, so I have to let's see where we're at here. Okay. So I said, okay, so we had number 7 was obviously New Orleans. Number 6, Dallas, folks. I mean, they have an elite wide receiver, and they're often good on defense, led by Michael Parsons. But Jerry Jones has and always will be the problem. He wants to overpay every single great player or good player that they have. You know, folks, they've got $90 million tied up in CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott alone. And by the way, both have been hurt this year. Now Lamb's fine, but I don't know if I'd paid him $30 million, but whatever. Both have been hurt this year, and that's when they went on their big losing streak and didn't go anywhere. I noticed they finished strong with under Cooper Rush. Good job for Mike McCarthy. That's why he's becoming a valuable commodity here. But, you look at Zeke Elliott. They paid him 2 years left on his contract. You hold out anybody that can play any kind of ball there at Dallas. You hold out for 10 minutes, and you got your contract extension, whether you deserve it or not. Zach Martin, CeeDee Lamb came in, took him a while to get done. That's another reason. Took him forever to get up in the game shape. About 5-6 games into the season, and they're 2-4, something like that, getting their butts kicked by that suspension, the Saints team in week 2. So, but when you've got an owner like that, that's going to be the problem. That you feel like you have to hit it out of the park with the draft, and you're going to have to catch a lot of breaks there, because he's going to always have your cap and influx there, because he's always going to overpay players that he likes, whether they're worth it or not, just to prove a point. And I remember one offensive lineman said this and I can't remember who it was, a former player there. And it wasn't a guy that ended on bad terms. It wasn't like a Dez Bryant or anybody like that, or a T.O. This was like a former offensive line. I didn't hear anything bad about him, but he says, it's really weird at this place. You have your workout facility there, and you're lifting weights, and then you've got Jerry Jones doing tours, people tapping on the window as if you're some kind of zoo animal and wanting you to wave at them while you're getting a workout in. That kind of distraction. That's what Jerry Jones said. It was always a big problem. Jimmy Johnson, always said it was a big problem with that was always a big problem there, that he's always wanting to have he's always wanted to be marketing the team, make it like a circus-like atmosphere. Maybe they can talk Deion into going, I'm Deion. I'm not taking that job. I don't know why I would want to take the job. You're going to be limited at that job. For them to find a way to get Schroeder, Sanders, and shed rid of Dak Prescott's contract at his age is ridiculous. I mean, Dak's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and he's hurt. I like Dak, but he's not worth $60 million. He's worth about 38 to 40. But that's Jerry Jones. He's more about getting the contract dragged out and people talking about Dallas rather than talking about Dallas winning on the field. I thought they could win a few years ago, and they proved me wrong every single time. They actually won their first road game in 30 years about 2-3 years ago when I remember I had Jim Jeffcoat on, and 2 years ago. That tells you how bad, and it's not going to really change there as long as he's the guy in charge. So it's number 6. And the only reason it's not number 7 is, again, because they do draft well. Maybe if you get lucky in the draft and something happens, maybe you could win. But there's a reason why they haven't done anything in nearly 30 years as far as actual Super Bowl contenders. Okay? Number 5, I got Vegas a little bit ahead because, listen, Vegas, they have Brady. He's involved there. He's a part owner now. They do have a nice indoor facility. They got the 6th pick. They've got $92 million in cap space. They're not too far behind New England. They have a left tackle. They have an edge rusher. Listen, Brock Bowers broke records as a rookie tight end. So they got some players. They've always had problems at defensive tackle. They've had problems at linebacker. Obviously, they've got quarterback problems. And at 6, I don't know what they could do at quarterback, but they've got money. They've got money. They're going to need a general manager, and they're going to need a head coach here. But Mark Davis, he's shown he's not overly demanding when it comes to the roster per se, But they have had 3 coaches and 2 GMs in the last few years. And Pete Carroll may be a good fit there. But I would put him at number 6 because of their situation right now, where they're at cap-wise, where they're at draft-wise. Davis will make the big move. He's took some big swings. I thought, personally, Mark Davis should have bucked the NFL and said, I will not fire John Gruden. I will take you to court like his dad would have in his prime, and I will fight you day and night until one of us dies. That's what they should have done, but they didn't. He just don't have that pit bull in him. The fact they've got Brady helping out with things, bringing that winning mentality there. Great stadium, great environment, good place to live. Vegas, pretty cool place. Used to live outside Vegas. Not too bad. I got it at number 5 out of 7. Got it ahead of Dallas, actually. Jets are number 4. You say, why Jets? Woody Johnson's kind of a whack job. Well, listen, he's never made these big brash demands on players that I've heard of. The Jets, listen, they hit on their left tackle, man. Fashanu turns out to be a pretty good left tackle. We know they've got a defensive line there with Williams. They need some depth on that offensive line with Will McDonald there to help out. And they got Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner. You've got some players there. Yes, you've got Aaron Rodgers there. Yeah, they got some cap issues there per se. They just need a quarterback to kind of groove the send under Rodgers, maybe a year, maybe 2. But they have a team. They have a team that can win. They showed that down the stretch. They need guidance. They need a good coach there. I get a sense that maybe this owner will step back here. Maybe he gets a job with the Trump administration. He had it before as an ambassador If you're a Jets fan, you want that. But they're settled in both lines. They need a quarterback here. They've got about $20 million in cap space, so they're not busted on the cap. They have cap. They have a little cap space. They have, and they've got some players there. Okay, they just need a little bit of stability here. I tell you what, the right coach, they can get to the playoffs next year, actually. With the right coach, the right backup quarterback, Mike McCarthy could do something with this team. Maybe if Rodgers and him bury the hatchet, possibly. But that's not going to happen. So I got it as number 4 as the best job available. The 4 out of 7. It's number 4. Okay, number 3 as the best job available in this hiring cycle, and that would be Jacksonville. A lot of people not talking about Jacksonville. They've got a franchise quarterback. He's lost a little bit of his flurry there, a little bit of his hype in Trevor Lawrence. He's got to prove something, but they do have a defensive line. They've got a pass rusher. They've got a fair offensive line. They got a star to make it in Brian Thomas, wide receiver, 87 catches, 10 touchdowns, 1,283 yards with two quarterbacks there. Brian Thomas there. Decent pass rush. Need a little help at corner. Don't care for that general manager. But the owner's already said Trent Baalke is not going to be involved with the coach. The coach reports directly to me, Sean Khan. So Jacksonville, I could see a guy like a Brian Flores saying, I could roll with Jacksonville, I would even see a guy like Ben Johnson saying I would run with Jacksonville if he get him a good defensive coordinator. And there's plenty of defensive guys out there that will take it. So Jacksonville's a much more attractive job than people want to give it credit for. I'm not one of those people. I know they got talent. They've just had a crappy head coach and have these guys ready half the time. And Doug Peterson, who's turned out just to be more of a quarterback guy and not a head coach here. He just kind of got lucky there. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 2, Chicago. I know a lot of people think it would be number 1, but listen, I don't like what I've heard about this president, Kevin Warren. I don't like the fact that he just wanted to go after Marcus Freeman because there's some kind of connection there. Don't like the fact that he didn't even pursue and try to make it work with Jim Harbaugh. He seems to come off as a guy, a president version of a Trent Baalke, who there's some insecurities there. He don't want to have people pushing back against him. Listen, you've got to do what's better for the football. I just mentioned that with Marcus Freeman and Sean McVay as coaches. They hire people that they could potentially feel threatened by because it's best for the football team. I didn't like that about Kevin Warren. I'd have moved off Kevin Warren if he told me that. But there's a lot of good stuff. They've got a fair offensive line. Could they use another right tackle, left tackle for depth issue and make some competition? Yes. But Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, 2 great skill players, Cole Kmet, they've got above average to good defense at times. They've got a pass rush. They've got corners there, linebackers. They got a good defense, folks. They just need a head coach. I like their quarterback. You saw some good things out of him. He goes a little bit off script. Mike McCarthy would probably be the ideal coach. Second would be Ben Johnson from Detroit there. But if it's Ben Johnson from Detroit, he needs to have some older defensive guys around him to help with that defense and also help muscle the guys in case they get out of line. I don't think that would be the case, but it's number 2. It's number 2 on my best of jobs that are available in this hiring cycle. And, of course, number 1, and he's going to be here in just about a minute or two and talk about it, Keith Engel, is the New England Patriots there. Listen, Robert Kraft has proved time and time again he's a pretty freaking good guy to work for, okay? 100 and some sites say over the cap says 120. Other sites say closer to 132. Either way, they're a good $30 to $35 million have cap-wise. They have more than everybody else. They're number 1 most cap space. Drake May, Drake May can play, man. Drake May can play. They can go out and get a receiver and not blink. They can get T. Higgins there. They've got the number 4 pick overall. They are definitely the best job now. They've got Mike Vrabel. But in this hiring cycle, in my opinion, the New England Patriots, and I didn't time it up this way. I kind of got lucky here. The New England Patriots, of the 7 jobs available, is my number 1 best job available. And on that note, I'm going to bring in Keith Engel from TGI Sports, everybody. The more I listen to Robert Kraft over the years, the way he's handled certain situations, he's had Bill Parcells, he's had Belichick, he brought back Vrabel. I think he's one of the best owners to play for. I like the amount of money I've got. I like Drake May. I don't see why it's not the best job out there. All that draft capital, Keith, of the 7 that's available.
Well, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
I disagree. It's a good organization, solid organization, as you said, a lot of money to spend. The things are all there. I think there's teams that are more ready to win, next year maybe than the Patriots. I think the Bears are more likely to, if you want to talk about teams that more likely to turn it around right away.
Yes.
I'd like to see them turn it around right away, but the Bears, I think, would be more likely. But you're right. I mean, this job has looked more and more attractive. For some reason, it seemed to have gotten more attractive since the season ended than before. But maybe that's because we didn't really expect the job necessarily to be open. And
that's what I wanted to ask you. Why do you think that he went on and pulled the trigger on Gerard Mayo?
I think Gerard Mayo would still be the coach of the Patriots today if Mike Vrabel were not in this cycle.
Oh, wow.
As simple as that. He could not hire Mike Vrabel last year because he already had a commitment to Gerard Mayo to make him the coach.
Yeah.
I think Vrabel, they identified very early, probably before the season was over. They knew they were going after Vrabel. I wouldn't be shocked if they had some conversation, at least through back channels.
Yeah.
Because you could talk to him. I mean, it's not cool to talk to a coach while you got a coach, I guess, but it likely happens a lot. Once they fired him and they got their 2 Rooney Rule candidates out of the way, but 10 o'clock in the morning, you kind of knew what was happening here. They gave I think
you said 3 o'clock in the morning. So, hey, can we do a Zoom call, man?
Yeah, and not just the fact that it was so quick they got those 2 guys out of the way. It was the 2 guys they interviewed didn't even coach in the league this year.
Who were they?
Pep Hamilton and
was it Frazier?
No, he was the offensive coordinator for the Bucks, the quarterback.
I
know his name's slipping my mind.
I could see his face. He was the OC for Brady.
Yeah, and he played for the Jaguars for a long time.
Yeah, I should know that.
I know his name, and it's slipping me. This is what happens when you get old.
And you know what? And he said
coached this year. Neither one were coaching in the league anywhere this year.
Yeah, he wasn't coaching in the league. He said he didn't want to coach. He didn't want to deal with Trent Baalke.
Yeah.
I'll think David Garrard. Or is
no.
It's the other guy that played for him.
Oh, Garrard played there. That's funny. He backed him up and then played when he got hurt. Oh,
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'll
when we find his name, I'll find it.
Quarterback offensive coordinator, I think it's who it was.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I know. This is how we do with me and Carlos. But I'm used to Carlos not knowing anything. But Keith Engel, I'm used to asking you the theory of relativity there, Keith.
I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this right now because it's driving me absolutely nuts.
I know, and I could see his face.
Byron Leftwich. Jesus.
Leftwich. Yeah. Yeah.
But neither one, they weren't going to hire either one of those guys. It was so obvious. And then I think they interviewed virtually Ben Johnson on Friday, but I think that was just, Ben Johnson getting himself a little experience in the interview process. He was never going to get the job. He was never going to take the job probably because they wouldn't pay him enough. And Vrabel was the guy in the beginning. And I think Vrabel is the perfect guy. I've heard a lot of Patriot fans even kicking back on me saying the perfect hire, culture change is on the way. Culture change in Tennessee the minute he got there. Guys were held accountable. They point out he was 54-46, I guess, overall. Well,
about 6 games above 500, yeah.
But his last couple of years, when his guy was, that's what things really fell apart when they got rid of his guy in the front office.
Arthur Smith or who was it? John Robertson?
Yeah. And things fell apart for him there. But people forget that team was 5-27 the 2 years before he got there.
Yes.
He took them to 3 playoffs in an AFC championship game without a quarterback.
And he always played well in the big games, the primetime games.
Yeah, and without a quarterback, he did all. I mean,
Mariota and
it was just Mariota and
Tannehill's not even in the league.
Those weren't good quarterbacks. I mean, now he's got a real guy who's got a chance to be a franchise quarter. A chance. I'm not saying he's there. He's got a chance to be a franchise type quarterback. Yeah. You're right. It's a great job, and he's the right guy at the right time. These guys need to be held accountable. Mayo, it's come out too recently that he's too much of a player's coach. He's playing cards on a plane rides with the coaches.
Oh, is he doing that?
That was reported when he came back from – this was after he got fired. That flying back from Arizona when they lost out there, he wasn't sitting with the rest of the coaches like most teams would do. And he's in the back.
Did not look prepared in that Arizona game after that late bye week, Keith.
Yeah. Listen, the end of the year, the blowout to the Chargers didn't help. That I think – the die was
they did, yeah. Stand-alone game.
I think that was the end right there. And it's, you can say, and I hear a lot of guys say, well, they didn't give him a fair chance, which even Kraft said. Yeah. We didn't. Kraft's now story is they expected Belichick to stay one more year, give him a little more on-the-job training, and then he would take over this year. That didn't happen.
That's a good answer.
So, to Kraft's credit,
diplomatic answer.
I mean, to Kraft's credit, and nobody who's a Gerard Mayo backer is going to buy this. He took the fault for this. He said, "We didn't give him a good team. I put him in a bad position. I feel bad about this, but you got to go." It's not just a bad talent; it's the penalties. The team just wasn't prepared too many times. They fought hard. Most games they played hard, but the defense took a big step back. This past year.
That's supposed to be his threshold. What do you think about? Here's the knock on Vrabel. This is what we've heard out of here in Nashville. Is he had issues with the general manager and wanted to pick the players and all this stuff. How do you think him and Elliott Wolf, who's got good pedigree, it's the son of Ron Wolf, is a legend at Green Bay.
Absolutely,
but he's a young guy. He's like 42, pretty close to my age. How do you think that dynamic's going to work? With that push and pull over personnel, which, they're going to have a lot of money. There's going to make some big decisions have to be made.
Well, I can't speak. Obviously, nobody can speak to how they're going to mesh. It depends on their personalities and how they get along. They have to get along for this team to get where they need to be. Yeah. Right? It's the coach's job, whether he's picking the players or just giving input, to give the right input. And then it's the general managers. They need to have the same philosophy, right?
Yeah.
It should be pretty simple right now. Protect the quarterback that you got. Get him some weapons. The defense can probably make a jump back, I think, with a little bit of attention to the linebacker area and maybe the safeties. But
who do you want with that 4th pick? You want Mason Graham, don't you? From Michigan?
I like Mason Graham. This is not a great draft for tackles, and they need offensive linemen tackles specifically. It's not a great draft for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. Again, if Belichick were there, I'd be positive they'd trade out of there. I still wouldn't be shocked if they traded back a little ways, not too far.
Okay.
And maybe get some draft stock later. It's going to be very interesting. I don't think it'll happen. If for some reason Travis Hunter were to fall to 4,
he might.
I don't see how you can pass him up.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know how he's not the number 1 pick. I really don't.
Yeah, that's what other guy. Now, Michael says, do you think Vrabel didn't get enough back? I think he did, Mike. I think Vrabel, from what everything I hear and read, he really wanted more power when it comes to the drafting. And I have an issue with that. We saw that's why Belichick got in a situation. He's drafted too many duds there, Keith.
Yeah, I think in Tennessee he got a lot of backing early on.
Yes.
And the last couple of years when he had some issues but again, they fired his guy in the front office. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
Thought he was getting marginalized in player personnel, and that's what ultimately led to him parting ways.
He did not like the moving of A.J. Brown. I thought it was a good move at the time, but when you draft duds to replace him,
if you're going
the offense left to be of an imagination. We had a terrible offense down here at the end. Couldn't block anybody.
Absolutely. One thing we'll have, his teams play hard.
They do play hard, yes.
They play smart.
Yeah.
And again, this guy, you don't get to the playoffs 3 times, get to an ACC championship game with the guys he had playing quarterback unless you can coach a little bit.
And everything kind of fell apart our offensive line got old overnight, Keith.
Yeah.
And it's just when you have that, when you're that limited at quarterback, you have to have a good line. I mean,
without a doubt.
We didn't have Lamar Jackson or a young Ben Roethlisberger here or Allen.
Well, you didn't have Derrick Henry either, right? Derrick Henry was out hurt the last year.
He got hurt, and they couldn't get any blocking for him, and it just everything fell apart all at once. And
I don't think – here's the thing in the NFL today. You're not going to see guys in jobs 20 years like Bill Belichick anymore because they're going to – things just get stale and people need a fresh start, both organizations and the coaches. And I think Vrabel will benefit from, the year away, I think probably has helped him a little bit.
Yes, reevaluate himself.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea for coaches is once you've gone through that, especially a first-time coach, to take that year, sit back, reflect on what you did right, what you did wrong, kind of look around the league and see what they're doing. And I think Vrabel will be a better coach for the experience he had in Tennessee. And again, I just feel like he's the right guy at the right time. And I was a Mayo backer when he got hired.
Yeah.
Just didn't like when I was watching I think I've told you a couple times I've come on. I didn't like his demeanor on the sideline. I didn't like the way the team was unprepared. The penalties. You don't have to be a talented football team to not make penalties. And they had to be the most penalized team in the league or close to it.
I was really shocked by those penalties.
Yeah.
I thought he was a stickler for that. I didn't know he was that much of a player's coach.
Oh. Well,
that's a negative if you get too much into the whole player's
coach.
And
then he tries to go the other way, in his press conferences, he wanted to show he wasn't a player's coach, and he called the players soft, and he would constantly have to be walking back some of the comments he was making.
He was talking out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah, and he just can't.
Do you see any high-end coach taking that Dallas job with their situation?
No, I don't know what they're going to do. Deion Sanders isn't going there. I mean, he's for whatever reason.
Yeah, why would he want to?
I have no idea.
$90 million, Keith, on 2 players, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and they're talking on TV. I know how ESPN because they got a big draw, but does anybody really think they're going to get anywhere with that much money and 2 players?
No, I just don't. I don't know what's going to be there. I mean, Mike McCarthy did a good job there, other than they didn't produce in the playoffs, and I'm not sure I can hang that all on him.
Yeah,
when you got players that don't step up. At the end of the day, it's a coach's issue. But I mean, he did win 36 games in 3 years before this year. That's not. You don't do that if you can't coach.
That's true.
I think he gets a job right away. I don't think he was coming back there.
Yeah. I don't think would he be a great? I really like him. The idea of putting him with the Bears. I think he's just ideal. Knows the division and everything.
I think the Bears would be a good hire for a good spot for him. The Saints might be a good spot for him. The Bears, I don't know why, but I keep seeing Pete Carroll on the sideline for the Chicago Bears. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I could also see if you want a big name that could be in Dallas, it could be Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll just wants to be in the game. He don't care, does he?
Yeah, I don't think he wants to go someplace where they're going to be, 1-16. But I think he'd be okay working for Jerry Jones. At least, he's 73. He's not going to coach 10 more years. So I think he'd be getting back in the game having a shot at another Super Bowl. I think he'd love
$1 million and a pack of gum. He's good to go, man.
I think the Bears can't lose with either McCarthy or Pete Carroll. I think they would bring a culture change to that. They'd be great for Caleb Williams. They need an established coach. They've gone the assistant route. I don't know, the last 4
years. Pete Carroll having his offensive coordinator work with Caleb Williams, judging by his crappy offenses in the past.
Maybe. I just like Russell Wilson turned into a pretty good quarterback under.
Yeah, you think they're going to? Well, they do have a good. Their line is better. My friend John, he don't like that offensive line. It's fair. They could use another tackle or two, but
I don't understand. Caleb Williams is getting ripped as a bust, and I don't understand how anybody can say Caleb Williams is a bust this year. His numbers weren't far off of, and they weren't that far off of Jaden Daniels' numbers. He threw for around 3,600 yards, 17 touchdowns. He threw 6 interceptions.
Yeah, I think he's okay.
The team was bad.
But you're okay with Carroll taking over. I mean, that was the reason why they got rid of him, because that offense is kind of
Well, maybe at the end when Russell Wilson got old. I mean,
that's a good point. And Geno Smith that was pretty much a lateral move with Geno Smith or McDonald from Pete Carroll. That's what I said from the get-go, Keith. I was like, you got a defensive-minded guy to a defensive-minded guy, but you still got the same quarterback who's limited. He's lucky to be there.
And again, he was there a long time, so he was welcome. Your message isn't getting across anymore, right? His whole.
Remember Bill Walsh, this 10 years, that's it. That's it.
That's enough. And I think that's probably all you're going to see out of guys now. Maybe not even that.
Yeah.
But I think Carroll would be I've always had a soft spot for Pete Carroll, and maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I've liked Pete Carroll. I liked him when he coached the Patriots. He wasn't their best coach, but he was a guy you could root for. A lot of guys root against him.
I didn't remember him at the Patriots. Was he decent at the Patriots?
He took over when Parcells, negotiated way during the Super Bowl to the Jets, and they made the playoff the first 2 years, and then I think he was around 500 for his career. Then they brought Belichick in.
Yeah.
Kraft still says today his biggest regret in football was firing Pete Carroll.
Wow. Well, if he put it that way, maybe. He's already interviewed with the Raiders. I thought he'd be a pretty good fit with the Raiders.
Yeah, that would tell me he just wants to get back in the game, because that team's a long ways from winning, man.
My opinion. I like I said, I did the 7 best jobs. Number 1 being the Patriots. Number 7 to me, Keith, would be the Saints. I mean, Mickey Loomis. I think Gail Benson's a little too distant.
Maybe
Mickey Loomis has been over the cap, $50 and $100 million. That's the general manager.
Yeah.
For about 5 years in a row, and they don't got much to work with.
No, there probably are. I would put the Raiders or 7 in that. I just can't get on board with the Raiders.
Raiders, they've got Brady. They've got $92 million in cap space.
Well, it does look like Brady's got a voice there, because he's been doing a lot of talking to coaches, including one that's got a job in college already, trying to get him to be the coach of that team too.
Oh, wow. So you really don't think that
conversation with his old coach in New England about coming to the Raiders, and
he's been linked to Vrabel and then Belichick, and neither one have came through. So maybe that is a bunch of nonsense.
Well, and listen, Belichick would look really bad if he jumped. But I told you when we talked about Belichick going to Carolina, Belichick has left the door open for him to get out of there.
Yes.
It's only even if he leaves tomorrow, it's a $10 million buyout. That's not outrageous for what you see today in college football. Yes. And after next July 1st, it's $1 million. That's it. He's left himself wide open. I really think if he thought the Dallas job was coming open and people would show interest in him, which a little bit of chatter happened there, the Raiders, he thought nobody was going to come calling. That's why he took this job. He wanted to coach this year. And that's the only reason in Carolina. He didn't have this burning love to coach college football, as he's trying to say.
Successful came with ex-college coaches, so he wants to relate with Sanders. I think the word's out that Jerry Jones just wants to be talked about. I don't really think he wants to win no more.
That's entirely possible. It's been 30 years, so maybe he's gotten used to it. I was trying to read that comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
I put up in the. So he wants to replicate it again with Sanders. He had because of Jimmy Johnson. Right, Jimmy Johnson. I wasn't thinking Jimmy Johnson, but I forgot Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, Jimmy, yeah.
And Barry Switzer followed him from Oklahoma, so he had very good.
Oh, he does like those guys.
So, but
he would love to bring in maybe Freeman. Or
that's 30 years ago. Yeah, Marcus Freeman's not going to the NFL. He just signed a 5-year extension with Notre Dame. He's in a perfect spot. You can't. What place in football, pro or college, would be better than being a successful coach at Notre Dame?
Yeah, 3 years in, I would bring him in for an interview because I like the fact that he is secure enough to bring in an older staff.
Yeah,
like an Al Golden as a defensive coordinator. I'm not in love with that Notre Dame offense in the NFL. He would have to sell me on his offensive staff and not the one he has right now.
No, Denbrick is the offensive coordinator, and they've done an efficient job, right? But that's not an NFL offense. Riley
run
Leonard,
left, run right, short pass. That's
Riley Leonard's a really tough kid and a good college quarterback, old school kind of college quarterback. I mean, but he's not throwing the football. I mean, if he gets drafted this year, it's going to be like 6th or 7th round probably.
Yeah.
But listen, college wise, that's a tough football team. It's a disciplined football team.
Yes.
Marcus Freeman, I think, will dabble with the NFL, but not now. Not now. He's at a place where this team, with Notre Dame, with a 12-team playoff, they're going to be in the playoff more years than they're not. And if he can get to the Final Four, every couple of years, he could be there for 20 years.
Too. He's a good salesman with these players, and to bring in talented coaches. I don't know who. I said the Jets wasn't that bad a job. If you look at the roster, it's not really that bad a roster, really, other than the Aaron Rodgers situation.
They brought in everybody in but you and me to interview for that job. They must have 20 guys. I don't know who's going to be. I think Aaron Glenn's going to get the job there. How about that?
Aaron, another defensive guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to go that direction, but I think he's the hot guy. He's an ex-Jet.
Guys, he's an ex-Jet. Man, make me think back to the 90s, huh?
And it's Woody Johnson running his team, so he's not going to make a smart hire. I mean,
Belichick said, ready, shoot, aim. Remember he said that on the Manning cast? Right. And then I was reading, Keith, about possibly him going back to the Jets. I'm like, does Woody Johnson know he's called you an idiot multiple times on national TV?
Oh, when I heard that, I mean, and they got it got a lot of play for about a week, right? That he called the Jets before he went to North Carolina. And I said at my show, there's 3 guys that aren't getting that job: Belichick, Rex Ryan, and me. We're all not getting a job.
If he hires Rex Ryan, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm putting a brown bag over my head, Keith.
How do you bring back a guy who fired?
Yeah, and who runs every team he goes, he runs the quarterback gets worse every year.
Yeah,
he's a great guy for what he does. I'd hire him a DC. He's not head coaching material, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Are coaches still sold on Trevor Lawrence, Keith? Well, how come that job's not getting talked about as much as it used to be?
No, where'd you have that ranked on your list? I'm curious.
Let me go back to my list and check it twice. It's a pretty good roster.
Yeah,
Doug Peterson had them sluggish, man.
Listen, you're going to have to be okay with Trevor Lawrence being your quarterback. I think with the right kind of coaching, I think Trevor Lawrence can come back.
Me too.
He's guaranteed a whole lot of money, so you're not taking that job unless you're sold on Trevor Lawrence can win in the NFL.
I think he's just got to tighten up he's got to tighten up that. I've got it as number 3. I mean,
that's a good job. Listen,
Ron Thomas had 1,282 yards. Nobody talked about it. LSU receiver.
You know who'd be a good listen? Ben Johnson's going to interview everywhere, right?
Everybody wants Ben Johnson.
What was the thought on Jared Goff when he got to Detroit?
A bust.
You think he's ranked any worse than where Trevor Lawrence is today? I don't. I think that job would be very intriguing to Ben Johnson, this Jacksonville job.
Yeah. Yeah. All he needs to get him a good DC. I mean, there's plenty out there.
Yeah.
There's plenty out there. I mean, Lou Amorano is a good – he was considered a great DC until Cincinnati started stripping down players and say, here, you go win with all these backups.
Yeah.
And he ends up being the fall guy. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the offensive line, you look at the defensive line, you look at the pass rush. They just they're a head coach away. I mean, maybe Trevor Lawrence he's got a health issue. He's a little tall. He's a little lanky.
Yeah,
he's got to tighten that up.
I think this season was an aberration for them. I think everything that could go wrong went wrong, and I think that's a team that could bounce back very easily for sure.
They could bounce back easy. Let me go back to my
Mike Tomlin might. Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere, I don't think, by the way.
That's why I didn't even bring it up. They're not going to do it. They're stubborn, man.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin's one of the most remarkable stats in football is the fact that they've had 3 head coaches in almost 60 years now. So,
yeah. How far can Jalen Daniels go? Is this a flash in the pan, or can you build a Super Bowl? Can they make in the next year or two?
You know, I think they can. Will they? I don't know. We've seen a lot. This isn't the first time we've seen this type of thing, right? We saw it last year with Stroud, and he took a step back. We saw it in Washington 10 years ago with RG3.
But wouldn't you say he's a better prospect than RG3, though?
At the time, RG3 was just as highly rated as Jaden Daniels. He came out of college. He won a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And he was a second or third pick in the draft. And he had a great rookie year. And then he got hurt in that playoff game. And the head coach, Shanahan, just kept putting him out there with a bad leg and really
remember that.
Kind of wrecked him. I think that game really wrecked Griffin's career. And so we see those types of things, and then they don't pan out. As you know, the league figures these guys out.
Yeah.
You know,
I think he's special, but we still have to have another sample size. I mean, his fourth quarter rating is unbelievable.
Yeah. He played
Eli Manning stuff in the Super Bowl.
And he played a great playoff game the other night. I mean, that team played every time it looked like they might fall out of contention. That game, they just fought back. That's a battling team, you know. I mean, Dan Quinn does a great job, and unless he gets up 28-3, then you don't want to.
Who do you think went this Ravens Bills game, man? It's got to be the game of the year up to this point.
For sure. I think Buffalo wins. Lamar Jackson.
You like Buffalo too? A lot of people like Buffalo.
They're playing at home. If this game was in Baltimore, I might think differently. But Josh Allen, this is a great matchup. I mean, there's no two more exciting quarterbacks. Exciting. The best quarterback still plays in Kansas City, by the way.
Yes, I think so too.
There's no 2 more exciting quarterbacks than these two, and seeing them play against each other will be great. But Lamar Jackson's still got that monkey on his back, and so does Allen a bit. At least he's been to a championship game. Jackson hasn't. This will be a fun game.
I've been back and forth on this one. That tells you it's going to be a good one. It's a nail biter, man.
I like these. I like the matchups. You know, somebody was saying earlier tonight that, you know, Kansas City's got a toughest road to the Super Bowl to anybody, and I'm like, that's the same road they had last year. They had to go to Baltimore and beat Baltimore. They had to beat Buffalo.
That was a rougher road.
I think you're right, and I think this team. they three-peat. I've been saying it all year. They win 3 in a row.
Maybe they're sluggish early and get some breaks, and Houston beats them. But I don't think so.
They just find ways to win. They may not cover the spread against Houston, but they're going to win the game. They find ways to win.
Does Notre Dame have a shot on Monday?
I have a large futures
money.
I got a futures bet on them in last August to win the national championship.
Oh, Notre Dame?
Yeah, they were.
What was the plus minus on that?
Plus 2,500.
Woo!
And I managed to get a $300 bet for only 100. So I got three times 2,500 coming if they win.
So you'll have a better, although you've got a great show. I don't say I can get better if Notre Dame wins. Go Notre Dame, man.
Well, I don't think I'll get better because I make money, but
Chad says go Notre Dame.
I'll be in a better mood. Listen, and that aside, I like to try to put those personal things aside, right? Ohio State's got more talent by far than
they really do.
Can I said Ohio State, right? Ohio State's got more talent.
They were my preseason, so I'm gonna stick with Ohio State. Yeah.
I think right now today Notre Dame's better coached. I think they're more disciplined. I don't think they'll make. It's going to come down to who makes a big mistake. Ohio State's not blowing his team out. They're not blowing his team out.
That's interesting.
They're going to be.
You did say Notre Dame had a good road. I thought Georgia would beat them even with that backup. I was wrong.
They look like they could have got blown out of the building against Penn State. Penn State couldn't put them away early when they had them on the ropes. They couldn't put the ball in the end zone. They dominated the first half. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They made great adjustments. Notre Dame has made great adjustments, I think, all through this playoff.
They have a second gear in the second half, and that's really impressive, man.
If they keep this game again close like they did against Penn State in the first half, where they might have some bumps in the road, I think they can come back in the second half and win this game. On paper, Ohio State should win this game, without a doubt. But
8.5 points. Hey, who you got on Friday, man? You have Don Beebe on this Friday?
I had Don Beebe a couple of Fridays ago. He was a great interview.
I'll have to go back and watch that. I'm getting so busy, man.
Recently, we had Don Beebe. We had Wesley Walker, former Jet. Recently, we had last week we had Tony Collins, former Patriot running back, who was a great, very inspirational story. Check that interview out. It was a lot of fun. No interview this week. We got the sound off show this week because we don't have a guest. So my audience is the guest, where they get to come out and sound off for 5 minutes uninterrupted by me, and then I boot them out. Boot them out and tell them how wrong they are.
And that's a new year. Have you changed your times or anything on your show?
Everything's pretty much the same. 9 a.m. For the one-on-one interview show on Eastern time, and then the MLB update on Friday at 3. Sunday Stream of Consciousness at 8:30 a.m. and the college football huddle at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. And
I listen to that at every chance I get.
I saw you there earlier tonight.
Yeah.
You coming in?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, Keith Engel, everybody. Michael says Penn State stopped running the ball. And there's something with Penn State. They're somewhat afraid of Aller. They seem timid for some reason. I can't put my finger on it. The last couple of years, maybe it's just because of Franklin. You know,
it's
like he's scared. He was never like that at Vanderbilt.
The common denominator there all these years in the
he's not been a big game coach at Penn State.
People are like, oh, he got the monkey off back the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Well, no disrespect to SMU or Boise State. I mean, that's not Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan. That's not, those aren't big time programs. No disrespect to them. That's not getting the monkey off of James Franklin's back, beating those.
I just think some of these guys, they get certain jobs that are dream jobs, Keith, and they hang on too hard. Lane Kiffin was scared to death at USC. Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M? That was not the Jimbo Fisher at Florida State.
Nope.
It's like all that money. He was hanging on to every little thing.
He was a great coach. Great coach at Florida State.
Yeah, national championship winner. They was putting out quarterbacks. They wasn't great in the NFL, but
and Texas A&M, he won the recruiting battles every year. He had a top 5 recruiting class every single year. But you don't win games in the recruiting. You win games on the field. That's the problem.
I bet he'd finally admit one of these days, I was a nervous wreck down there.
Probably. You'll see. I think Jimbo comes back. I think Jimbo takes a few years off.
I'd hire him. I know he can recruit.
Recharges, and I think he'll get another job, a little less high profile, and maybe you'll hear from Jimbo again.
I think so, too. Keith, hold on. I got to find the audience here, man. I got to give you official sound off here, buddy. Keith Engel. Good luck, man, and go Notre Dame for your sake, buddy.
Thank you.
See you, man. Everybody, I'll be back tomorrow with the Mad New Yorker will be breaking down these games and give predictions, and they're going to be tough here. I don't know. Buffalo, Baltimore. I don't know. You'll find out tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.